And a very warm welcome to all our Hong Kong viewers. We're here in the Western Cape at Kenilworth Racecourse for the World Sports Betting Cape Met. Fantastic race card. We've got some big fields, and certainly some of the best thoroughbreds in South Africa will be lining up this afternoon. And we've got a great panel assembled to take you through today's cards, and you'll be familiar with most of them. Immediately to my right, I'll introduce you to Anthony Delpech. Anthony, thanks very much. Obviously, you're no stranger to Hong Kong coverage because you've done most of the days with me, and also from riding there.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed riding there. Very professional, and nice to be on the panel and giving them a bit of information about our racing.
Well, I think you were the hottest property after the Gold Cup meeting on the Whirlpools because you put everybody into Izzy Vungu Vungu, who arrived like an absolute soldier. And I think if you go to Hong Kong now, you'll be very popular.
Well, let's hope after this meeting I'll be more popular.
Excellent stuff. Let's move on to our next panellist, and that's going to be our champion trainer-elect, Justin Snaith. He's been a champion trainer in the country and in the Western Cape numerous times, and he's got a strong hand in quite a few of the races as well. Justin, thanks once again for joining us.
Great, thanks, Grant. Great to be here.
In terms of runners for the day, you normally have a big day on Met Day, and you've got some great runners again today. We look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, I think Lomron's King's Plate was a very quiet day for us. It certainly didn't go our way, and we're coming for revenge. I've really put between Rich and I, we've put a lot of work in, and I think we're quietly hoping for some fireworks.
Well, we're looking forward to chatting to you because our next guest is Richard Fourie, who's also a familiar face with our Hong Kong viewers, and he works very closely with Justin. So let's hope that they're in agreement with what they're expecting from their runners, because if they're not, that could cause a little bit of confusion. But Richard, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and it's a great pleasure.
It's been a while since you were in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I did that a while ago, and it was a great experience, and focused on more home-based sort of racing, and ride Group 1s as many as I can. And so my focus changed, but never know what happens in the future.
Fantastic stuff. So those are the panelists, and we've got a whole heap of information for you. And we'll start off with the first race that Hong Kong will be taking, and that's going to be the Majorca Stakes. It's a weight for age, straight into Group 1 action. And I'm going to start off with Justin Snaith here because he has got the favourite, and this is a 1 in a million filly, Captain's Ransom, who's going to be running to win this race for the third consecutive year. So Justin, she's been a wonderful asset to your yard. She's been obviously a filly you've enjoyed training.
Yes, very much so. She was last year's Horse of the Year. This season hasn't quite gone as perfect as I would have hoped. She hasn't had enough racing, I thought, up to this point. She had a race early in the season, which I had to run against Colts just to get a run. And then, unfortunately, her next race, we had only a few nominations, and they decided to scrap the race. So we had to then, look to another program with her and work her from home into what is a race which is her furthest distance that she is competitive over. And I think just when she needed to kick, she was a little bit found wanting, beaten by a lovely filly. I do think that this race back over a mile, we'll see possibly, I think it'll be her best run of the season. She'll take a lot of beating. There's no pressure to Richard, but he carries the pressure well. I do think she is the class act. And to start looking elsewhere is very hard. Yes, there are other horses, but they all seem to have issues with distance or quality. So she has none of that. So it's very hard, the rest of the card. I do think here, you don't need to look too much further.
Is she your best run on the day?
Grant, she has to be. The betting suggests it. I think punters are always a good way to follow. Sometimes if you think you've got a very good chance, the punters seem to think so. A lot of the other horses have opted to run elsewhere. Princess Carla, horses like that possibly could have run here. Also the favourite for the Met is a filly that possibly could have run here, and I can see why they ran away.
All right, Richard, you've been riding this filly at work. You know her well. It's almost like your next marriage. How's the filly been feeling for you, and are you as confident as Justin?
She's in great shape, and like Justin said, what could have possibly gone wrong for her last time happened, and everything had to change. But now going into this race, how much better do you want it to be? She's at her peak now. No excuses this time round.
All right, so great confidence coming from both Justin and Richard. Anthony, obviously the filly was beaten by your filly, Make It Snappy, who we'll chat about later on as well, but she's got an impeccable record.
Yeah, obviously, I think the mile is maybe her best strip, and she does look the filly that they'll all have to beat. But I think Chardonnay, if that's number 5, if she comes back to her best form, she's about the only filly in the race that can give her a go.
Yeah, because they have got collateral form lines that seen them run quite close up together, but where Shanson has been just a little bit disappointing, you have to say, her last couple of runs.
Yeah, she has. She's definitely been a bit disappointing. So if you go back to her earlier form, she's the only filly that I believe that can, if she comes back to her best form, can give Captain Ransom a run for money.
All right, so as you heard from the panelists here, very much in the favour of Captain's Ransom. And a smallish field, this is probably one of the easier races because as we go through the card now, the racing does tend to get a lot tougher. So let's move on. We'll move on to race number 2, and that's going to be the Cape Racing Merit Rated 74. It's a handicap, this race, and quite a large field here. And it's going to be interesting. So let's start with Justin, who's going to have quite a few runners here as well. And he's got numbers 1, 3, 8, 13, and 14, Justin. So let's not go through every one of the runners, but let's pick out the ones that you think are going to be the most competitive in this contest.
Well, Grant, I think the one thing that the punters should look at is obviously the distance. It's a 1,400 metres here at Kenilworth. It is a little bit of a draw bias. And my better 2, which would be To the Moon and Back and Nevada King, drew the widest. The ones that are calling the dark horses of the race, Future Turn, who's possibly looking for a little further, drew the best. I might go out on a limb here and actually take the 2 that are drawn the worst, which will be Nevada King. I think Richard will go positive and he should run a big race. And I think To the Moon and Back, unfortunately, he's going to have to be dropped out quite a long way back from there. It's the only way that he races and could be firing home for the Quinella. As I said, probably Give Me More Time, hasn't got bad form. He never, every time we think he'll run a sort of half okay race, he actually runs a little bit better. And I think with Pierre Stratum back up, could be a horse that could be in the firing line as well.
All right, Richard, you've ridden quite a few of the runners that are going to be lining up for Justin here. Are you on the right one so far as what you feel his work's been like at home, and are you worried about the draw?
You know, the draws obviously makes it a bit easier, but I think with this race, it was hard to pick a specific ride because we only get the draws after acceptances. So pity about the draw. To the Moon and Back, his last run he had excuses, and what Justin says now, the draws don't quite help. But if the pace is hot, the 2 of us, you know, we could make up quite a bit of ground from that draw. And if the speed is slow, it's going to be tough for us. So I think everything in this race is going to have to be carefully calculated the first few strides of the race in basing where I'd like to be or where the opposition would be. So I think a lot of homework's got to go into this one. Saying that, I think Give Me More Time is definitely the dark horse for me. I've seen his last start and what he looks like at home. He's really improved and he could be a big danger to us.
All right, you are currently the favourite on Nevada with the draw, but you're certainly going to be a tougher race. And maybe this is one that you've got to play a little bit wider in as well. Anthony, how did you see this race panning out? You guys don't, in Hollywood, have a runner here, but in terms of the form you've studied, what do you like?
Well, I thought, you know, I think a 1,400 is definitely very difficult for the outside barriers, and they are going to find it pretty hard. Nevada King and To the Moon and Back, it is going to find it pretty difficult from there. Out of Justin's horses, I think Give Me More Time, for me, is the horse that they'll all have to beat. We beat it with Beyond the Boundary, and I thought he's quite a smart horse. He's not a bad horse. So I'm going to go with Give Me More Time.
All right, so Give Me More Time. Justin, would you put anybody off having a little each way on that horse?
Listen, I've been on the show with Anthony a few times. I'm a believer. If Anthony reckons Give Me More Time is my best runner, I'm with Anthony.
All right, well, there we go. And I think you're going to get some nice favourable odds there as well. So don't leave him out. And it is a trappy race, this. So you do need to play quite wide. But Justin does seem to have a very strong hand. Right, we'll move on to the third race, and that's going to be the City of Cape Town Summer Juvenile Stakes. Now, these are always tough races because a lot of these are lightly raced, and a couple of them sometimes have even come to the race as maidens. And once again, we've got a horse here, which is number 5, who's called the Abdicator, who was an easy winner first time out, who tops the boards at the moment. This one is the favourite. But Justin Snaith also, he's got some lovely runners. Let's start with Noonday Gun, and that is Justin Snaith's runner. He's got Keegan de Mello, and wasn't a bad debut effort behind Dumbledore.
And he's a very immature horse. So I think he'll come on a lot, but he has to be, you've got to be quite exceptional in this race to run well. As I said, I do think he's a horse, if you're going wide, you may want to put him in because he's going to have quite a career ahead of him. But in saying that, the Abdicator looks the opposite. It's just whether that last run is a bit close to this race. Sometimes you think you can back 2-year-olds up very quickly and it's an advantage. It can easily go the other way. He's quite a heavily set horse. Whether he's pulled up okay, shins, that sort of thing. But he is a very, very impressive horse. So I think we're all going to be pretty much chasing him home. Of my other horses, I do think Golden Sickle, that Richard has chosen to ride, is the filly's version of the Abdicator, impeccably bred, very quick. Has had time to mature and come on from that run. Her gallop was good. She galloped with Noonday Gun. Richard could probably talk more about that gallop. I think she probably had the measure of him at level weights. So this for me is a very open race. 2-year-olds can go backwards, they can improve. I think Glenn Cotton's horse here, Tatiana, is a horse that maybe has to be respected. She's done nothing wrong up to date. Very, very open race. As I said, something where, and it could pay. I think there's going to be a big payout here, big field. Certainly, there are a lot of horses here that you need to follow.
Yeah, it's almost like the Abdicator or nearly the field, isn't it?
That's it. That's how I feel. And I think if there's going to be a danger, it could be our filly. She's no slouch. And as I said, she's done nothing wrong either. Very, very competitive race.
Richard, let's ask you about Golden Sickle, seeing Justin mention it. You rode her first time out. There was quite a bit of support for her in the marketplace, and she won a really good race. Gets 2.5 kilos, obviously, the sex allowance, taking on the Abdicator. What do you think of her chances?
Well, I think her chances are as good as his chance, the Abdicator. I remember seeing him in the parade ring, and he looked quite a big and heavy horse, and, he came home lonely. But also, this filly did the similar thing. She was quite green. She didn't really travel in the race. She wasn't really focused. But then when I gave her a fright, she really took off. And she won a good race. But I've noticed some market support in this race for Bohemian Grove. Kopeliwe last time, first start running against Abdicator. Now there's a 3-kilo swing. I know there's 3 lengths in it, but he's a light sort of horse, and he can easily be an upset. And then obviously you got to respect Golden Tatiana. Her last win was a good win, taking on a Snaith horse, carrying 60 kilos, and the filly at 54.5. So I think this race can really be narrowed down to 4 or 5 horses that look like serious horses, that look serious in this specific race.
I'm glad you mentioned Bohemian Grove. I'll start with you on that one, Anthony. Ricky obviously surprised all the odds when he came home in the King's Plate. He's a really experienced trainer. He's been around for a long, long time. And that Bohemian Grove run first time up looked like it was a bit of an educational gallop as well. And I think there's going to be a lot to come.
Yeah, I've ridden for Mr. Mangard, and he's a guy that doesn't send his 2-year-old first time out really fit. They're going to improve a lot with the run. But saying that, I was here when the Abdicator run. We had Kopeliwe in the same race. And he really looks a smart horse. For me, I said the Abdicator will win.
Will win it. Okay, so you ran behind him. You're getting 3 kilos for the 4 and a bit length beating, so you should be a bit closer up.
I think we do need the 3 kgs. I really do. I think a lot of this was in the manner that he won, and just watching him, the professionalism he was as a racehorse, he really he knew how to race, and those are always good horses. Obviously, our horse is going to improve from the run. We missed the break and ran on, but I really don't think we can beat him.
Just a line for the viewers as well. If you have a look at Bohemian Grove, first time out was ridden by Sean Veal. Sean's opted to stay with your runner, Anthony.
Yeah, he's showing very good work at home, but Seanville, all of them shows very good work at home. Yeah, he's showing very good work at home, and obviously he's going to come on with the run, and expecting him to run closer to the favourite. Obviously, getting the 3 kgs is going to make us run closer to him, but I really don't think we'll beat him.
All right, so strong words coming from Anthony regarding the abdicator, and he certainly did impress on debut, and he will be the one they're all going to have to beat. Next race up is a novel race because it's called the World Sports Betting Gold Rush. It's a sales race and it's carrying a massive prize fund of R7.5 million. And this is a race where I'll start with Anthony. Obviously, Anthony, it's a different type of race, the first time it's being run. You guys, as Hollywood Syndicate, you've got a horse here, I say a Pimbili, who is probably better than the form suggests.
Yeah, I think her last run, I think you can put a line through it. Sean wasn't really happy. She just arrived in Cape Town and she wasn't doing really well. And Sean said that she's really come on in her work and expecting her to run a big race. But saying that the field is really competitive. It is going to be really tough for her. But I expect her maybe to finish into the money.
All right, so maybe a money chance for the 10 horse there. Justin, you've got the horse that's topping the betting boards and probably has done for a long time. That's Royal Aussie. Now, representing the most solid form here, undoubtedly, was a good 4th in the Cape Guineas as well. How's he been doing at home? Because he had excuses his last 2 runs.
Grant, I've had very little luck with this horse coming into, right from the sales race, his last 2-3 starts, he picked up a bug. And of all my horses in my yard, he's been the hardest to get rid of it. I mean, he ran in the Guineas off the back of a race where he was really below par and ran to 108. So I'd hate to know what he can run to if he's well. So that's what the Guineas is a very interesting race. So I think we've nailed it to the best of our ability for this race. If he's good enough, he'll win. Everything has gone to how I was hoping it would go this last week, and the closer we're getting to the race, the more well he's becoming. He's cleared of all the infection in his lungs and things like that he's had, which is not what the opposition would want to hear. No. I can assure you. So yes, he's the favourite. Yes, he's coming to the course in a great nick. Yes, he got the draw that we were hoping he would get. So I do think he's going to run right on top of them. There is a horse in this race that they're backing like they know the result, which is King Regent. Yes. It's unbelievable. I mean, there's been maybe 1 or 2 horses on this day where the money is just flooding for the horse, and that is King Regent. They have not stopped. Yeah. His form is good. He's had 2 close wins. First time over a mile, he ran just behind a horse of mine that then came out and ran second in a stakes race. So all the confidence there, all the signs are showing that their horse will run a great race, and I think Grant's quietly very confident here.
So he's one that must be thrown into the play as well, then you expect?
You have to. There's just so much confidence, and he drew 2. Yeah. He gets the distance on his last run. A lot of these horses are not going to get the distance, not at any point in their career. I do think I do have 2 horses that are nice dark horses here, which is It's Raining William and Triple Time. They run the distance. So they could be the dark horses in the race, but obviously a lot of respect to King Regent.
Richard, you know this horse well, Royal Aussie. He's well above average. I think we all know that. Tell us how he's been doing at home, and what are you expecting in this race as a jockey? Because when there's money on stake like this, there's going to be no favours done. There's going to be no odds. It's going to be quite a tough race.
Well, I'm expecting to win, so I'm not going to share any more detail into that. But what I can say is his improvement since the Guineas is there, and he shows it now. He's fresh at home. His well-being is great. The breathing is good. The movement's great, and that's all I want. I'm coming into this race better than what he went into the Guineas with. So for me, that's all I want, and I'm pretty sure for the owners and for the team as well, we're coming in there with a much happier and healthier horse. So I'm looking forward to it. I know it's not an easy race. There's going to be scrimmage, but I'm sitting on a really big horse, and you're not going to push him around. I can guarantee you. the first bit of the race, he'll be where he needs to be, and he'll make them work up the straight.
It's going to be a spectacle, Anthony, and who's your first choice?
I think it's a wide open race. I don't make it a one-horse race. I think that also Michael Roberts, see it again. He just had a run fit last time. He's a smart horse. I think he's a real smart horse. Obviously, Rachel's going to have her hands full in this race because it is going to be a dirty race. I think a horse like David the King, I don't think his draw is most probably his only problem, but he hasn't run too far behind Justin's horse.
Yeah.
So the form around there is pretty close. I think just the draw is going to make it a little bit more difficult, but I would play this race a bit more open.
All right, it does look to be very competitive, and you're certainly going to get some value to be had there. Nice confidence coming from Justin and from Richard, but as you heard from Anthony, it's going to be a tough race, it's going to be a rough race, and it's going to be a matter of who gets some luck in running as well. So it's going to be a great spectacle, that we can be sure of. Let's move on to our next race. It is going to be the Cape Flying Championships, a Group 1 sprint. It is one of the fastest races in South Africa, and it always does lead to being a very competitive event, and we've got a full field once again. Anthony, I'm going to start with you because this is the horse that Hong Kong will never forget, Isivungu Vungu, who came through on Gold Cup Day and scored really well. How's he been doing? His comeback run here in the Western Cape behind Mr. Cobbs was cracking.
Yeah, he was a bit unlucky. He couldn't get a run, and Christoph had to wait and then switch him to the outside, and I think the race was already over, and he got beat a short head. He has come on. Only concern is his second run back after a break, but if that doesn't affect him, I think he's the horse they'll all have to beat.
You certainly got some solid form, and you actually said before the season that this was his mission.
This was always his mission, yeah. He's done very well since he's come to Cape Town. And I think another horse that I think don't write him off is Hit Them Hard Sunshine. I think he's a nice horse. He wasn't right his last start. You go back, you look at his form. There's nothing wrong with his form. He's a very nice 3-year-old, and Eric says he's doing very well at home, expecting a very big run from him.
All right, so that's word from Anthony regarding number 1, Isivungu Vungu, who has to be a big runner. Justin, you're sending out Rio Karari, who's obviously been champion sprinter many a time. Hasn't quite got up to that form where we know he's capable of. How's he doing at home? Has he shown glimpses of that return to form back home?
Grant, if he comes back to 70% of his ability, he'll win this race. This is not one of the strongest Cape Flyings that I've seen. If anything, it's one of the weakest Cape Flyings that I've seen in quite a long time. I give a lot of respect to Princess Carla. She's back. It's amazing. She's just since she's been back over sprints, she can't stop winning. So she's just a class filly, and I certainly think that she could be a horse to watch out for. I know Anthony's probably thinking we fancy every horse on the day, but where credit's due, this horse came back from a long layoff, almost an 8-month layoff. I had a race prep for him, 1,000 meters here at Kenilworth. There was a change in the program because they wanted to make a 1,200 for the horses that were running on into the Group 1. So they changed the race from a 5 furlong to a 1,200, and it was just not what he needed. He wasn't ready. He was still very, very heavy. Then I brought him into the 1,000 here with 62 kilos, giving away 6 kilos to the field. He got beat 3 lengths by Isivungu and a lot of those horses.
Yeah.
We're now 6 kilos better off for a race for a three length beating when we were still using those as prep runs into what is today. Saturday. If he gets back to where he is and he makes a little bit of improvement, he's going to be right there. I can tell you, at home, he's really doing exceptionally well. And I do think whatever price, they opened him up 20-1. If ever there's been 20-1 that I think someone should have a piece of, even if you take the place at the time, you're getting a great price on a horse that was champion sprinter last year, and all he's done is come back into the season with 1 or 2 runs. A horse I would certainly respect and include in everything.
You've put blinkers on?
Grant, at the moment, Grant's going through, jockeys do that sometimes. Anton Marcus was always ring bits. Grant's going through, I wouldn't be surprised to see that cousin Casey's got blinkers on. Grant's putting blinkers on everything. So if it makes him comfortable, we'll be a little bit closer than sometimes, where he's a bit far back. It certainly will it certainly won't work against him. And as I said, just a horse at the price, ridiculous.
Richard, you're riding Bertoldi. Obviously, you haven't done much work with him. He's in Joburg.
No.
What do you know of him?
Not much, but his form is not bad. He is a known sprinter up in the Highveld, and he's got form. So he's got a rating that he deserves. He's been running in feature races, and this is a weight for age sort of race. So he's in the right place. I'm happy to have been able to find a ride like this because I got fired by Isi Vungavungu's guys. I rode this horse, like I said, on Gold Cup night, and he gave me an absolute feel. Unfortunately, couldn't ride him first time out here, and that's what happens. You end up losing rides. So,
if you had a choice of a ride, would he be the ride?
Yes, I just think he's the sort of horse that is an ideal 5 furlong horse, and the faster they go, the better it is for him. So. Lovely horse, and I can also talk about Hit Him Hard Sunshine. I rode him his first couple starts, and he's out of a very fast mare, Agra, which Justin trained.
Yeah.
I think she won her first 4 races in a row. And breaking course records. I think he's also by What a Winter, so there's super fast speed in that horse, and he hasn't shown it this season yet, but he's still a lurker. There's something about that horse. Tricky race. Give me a Prince. If it was a 6 furlong, I think that's the horse to beat. I think the 5 might be a bit on the sharp side. I saw Rio working this morning. Made me nervous, not going to lie. he really put up some work and caught my eye. I couldn't believe it's actually him coming off the track like that. And he was an absolute bull. Princess Carla, she's done fantastic now, recent form. But for me, I think a 5 furlong is a little bit short.
Yeah,
so,
especially at this level now.
Yes, exactly. And even though she's drawn on probably the ideal side of the track on the day, based on which the weather looks like it's going to be a bit of a southeaster, it could be in her favour, but I think she's going to stretch to keep up with these 5 furlong horses.
All right, Izzy Vunga certainly seems to tick quite a few boxes here, but some nice value to be had with Justin Snaith's runner. Let's move on to the big one. It is the World Sports Betting Cape Town Met. This is a classic race. It's one of the best races we held here in Cape Town. We've attracted a really big field, some 19 runners lining up this afternoon. I'm going to start straight away with Anthony, who's involved with Hollywood, who have the favourite here, Make It Snappy, who's been a bit of a revelation, because let's talk her through her career so far. She's only had the 5 starts, Anthony, and it was September last year that she won her maiden, and she's since then gone on to win 2 Group 1s.
She's been fantastic. I mean, you can't actually believe she's actually won 2 Group 1 already, and this is a big step for her. But I think in her favour is the allowance, the weight that she's getting, 51.5, and they're going to have to give her a lot of weight, and the way she races and the manner she races, she's going to have a lot of things in her favour. But obviously this is a toughest task. I mean, Jet Dark has had a great prep coming into this race, and he's proven a top horse. He's won Grade 1s. He's a real good horse. Comet de Ding, I also feel that he's had a very good preparation. And for me, the dark horse in the race is Sparkling Water. She was dropped out the back in her last run, and she finished the race off very strong. For me, those are the horses that will fight the race out.
All right, but word from your yard in terms of Make It Snappy, the 2,000 metres, fairly bullish in terms of expecting a big showing from her.
Well, she's done everything right, and she's got no weight on her back. But it's tough for a 3-year-old to beat all the horses. But I think what she's doing at the moment, she's just showing you that she is very talented, and I think she's going to give a good account of herself.
Well, Justin's no stranger to winning the Met with a 3-year-old filly at these weights. There was Susanna who came through and scored, and she won well. She won by a couple of lengths on that occasion. But I don't know if she was taking on a Jet Dark and a Comedy Ding and those type of horses. So I'd love to get your feeling first on the 3-year-old filly carrying 51 in this year's contest, and then we'll move on to how your horses are doing.
Grant, yes, you've touched on that. When Susanna won, it wasn't one of the stronger Mets. It was a right time, right 3-year-old, right field. This is certainly a little bit stronger. I don't think the team of Make It Snappy could have done a better job in giving her every chance in this race. Every race she's run, it's just like it has fallen into place at the right time. So, but this is a big change. This is a big step up. So that's my opinion on Make It Snappy.
Yeah. Jet Dark, how's he at home? And obviously was a great run in the King's Plate. He got going quite late in that race. This trip should suit him down to the ground.
Yes, unfortunately we had an incident the Thursday before the Greenpoint Stakes, and we had to scratch him out of precaution. But certainly we lost that race which meant, like Captain's Rants, we had one run in 6 months.
Yeah.
Not ideal, certainly not where we wanted it to be at the time. He has come on from that. I do think, like Anthony thinks, I think it's these two horses again, Commodading and Jet Dark. Same as last year, exact same, hopefully not the same result, but I do think they've just always been that notch up on some of the other horses here, like Rascallion and Linebacker, Warrior, all those other horses. They all seem to fit in the same place. They really have to run the greatest race that they've ever run in their lives to finish in the money here, those horses, which I think one of them are going to, whether it's Rascallion, one of my Do It Again, those sort of horses. But it's a bit of a lottery. And obviously I do give a lot of respect to the 3-year-old cousin Casey. I do think he's the best 3-year-old around at the moment, although the Guineas might have changed a lot of people's opinion. I still think that he's warrants being here. He's got stamina and obviously a horse that for the minor places, a horse that you might have to respect.
All right, you've heard from your trainer there, Richard, in terms of Jet Dark. Is he the horse to beat?
Well, I think he's a horse to be respected. Beautiful draw. He's always drawn on the outside of the track. For once, he's got a lovely draw, and I can just ride a lovely race on him. You know, for me, that's more than gold. Just the fact that everything should be a smooth and easy sort of run for him.
Question I've got to ask you, what do you think the pace is going to be like in the race? Will Make It Snappy go to the front?
No.
Who's going to lead?
You're looking at horses drawn 17, 18, 19. I think the speed's going to come. Respecting the filly at 51.5, definitely. She's a massive filly. I see her most days at track. She's a really tall filly, and I could see why she managed to beat the horse of the year. She's very capable, got a lovely stride on her, picks it up, slides well, and fights off the dangers. Going into this race, sometimes the 2 draw is not a great draw, even though you're closest to the rail, but it could be a bit argy-bargy in the beginning stages of these races. Hopefully Keegan can do the weight. I'm not sure if Anthony and them are allowing him a half a kilo more. But
that didn't look like a yes.
We'll go back to Anthony and ask you.
Weight is everything, and if you have an advantage at 51.5, you don't want to give any weight away. A pound is a pound, and over that distance in this sort of caliber, you got to keep your pound close to you. But saying that, Commodading's always been a legend. He's within a half a length of Jet Dark whenever they meet. Sparkling Water, I think she's out at the weights, just based on the Durban July run when Jet Dark came from last because of his draw. And we are on home advantage now, and I'm very, very happy with his prep, so it's game on.
Excellent stuff. Anthony, Keegan, 51.5, 52.
No, I think Keegan will make 51.5. I mean, as a professional jockey, if you're riding the favourites in the race, you don't want to ride it half over.
You don't have to give weight away. Yeah.
No, that's firstly, if he's professional enough, he'll make sure you come to the races and he'll be able to ride 51.5, and that's your job, so you must make sure.
Would you want her to lead?
I don't think I want to discuss this in front of Justin. I don't think she has to lead. She doesn't have to lead.
Well, she's going to be wherever she is for nothing, isn't she?
She's pretty simple to ride. I mean, if you watch the races, she's got speed. So I think, as Richard says, the draw two sometimes can be against you, which he is right. But she's got speed, so she's going to be out of trouble. I think we've got one of the jockeys that's riding him is probably about best of all the jockeys at the moment. He's really riding well, and yeah, you know, I think the biggest question is she good enough to beat the older horses? That's the biggest question, and
She'll tell you on Saturday.
We will find out.
No, I think at the weights as well really makes a difference.
Yeah,
Helps a lot.
absolutely. And like I said, the 51.5 will make a big difference as well. Right, let's move on to our next race. It'll be the 7th race from South Africa for our Hong Kong viewers, and this is the Western Cape Stayers. It's a Group 2 event. It's over 2,800 metres, and here there are 2 withdrawals that we can give you. Numbers 10, Bulgarian, and number 11, Find Me Unafraid. Those 2 are not going to be lining up. So that leaves you with just 10 runners. I'm going to go to Justin first here because he's arguably got the best stayer in the country with Silver Host, but this is a horse that's having its second run here after a lengthy layoff. His comeback run was very good, Justin. You must have been delighted with that, over a trip short of his best. How well have you got him for Saturday?
Grant, you do. I'm not going to say I'm not worried about the second run, especially after a long layoff. He's been been off for over a year. His comeback run was incredible, though. I mean, he ran 3 wide the whole way in a 1800 against quite a stiff field. Came into the straight, ran into the back of them. I don't want to say he couldn't get a run. He had to be eased up. To say he couldn't get a run means he would have gone through and run better. I think the gap closed at the right time so that he could actually look more impressive. But still, in saying that, from a long layoff to run that sort of race, puts him with Knowles, who I think is probably the horse to beat. He ran the same race and got a little bit closer. But this has always been, for me, the best stayer in the country. He proved it every time he ran in the big staying races and carried 60 kilos in the Gold Cup. And I do think he's going to be firing a little bit late, and he's going to go quite close. But I do give a lot of respect to Knowles. Some of the other horses, I think, over this distance, they just don't have the same class.
Salvatore Mundi, could he run into the money?
He's doing very well at home, but I would never think that he could run alongside Silver Host at these conditions.
So, Richard, you've obviously been working Silver Host at home. Is he giving you that feeling that he's back to his best?
Well, I think if he had one more run under the belt, I would have felt a lot more confident. But saying that, he was always a great horse. Even though before the injury, he ran some great races up in Natal, where he carried 60 kilos and Knowles carried 52.5. If we had one more start and meeting Knowles on Saturday at level weights, I think I would have been a lot more confident. But saying that, he can't blow out a candle at home. He's in a good space. He's sound. He's happy and well. So I still think he'll run a great race regardless of how his fitness would be. I think he's just the sort of horse that aims to please you, and he'll run a fantastic race.
Yeah, I thought his comeback run was absolutely superb after such a lengthy layoff. Anthony, how do you see race number 10?
Yeah,
number 7.
Well, I've got to have question marks once you're going over 2,800 and there's a question mark of how fit he is. You're going a trip now, so you have to be fit. You can't be unfit, and obviously they would have loved to have another run. I think Knowles is the horse they'll all have to beat.
Yeah, his comeback run was, and the way he finished that race off was also impressive.
I make Knowles a good thing.
Okay, so there you have it. Anthony strongly in the camp of 6 Knowles. His biggest challenger undoubtedly will be Silver Host, but things might just fall into Knowles' favour. He does look to have an outstanding chance here. Move on to the 8th race that we'll be bringing you from Cape Town, and this is the World Pool, the Invitational. This is over 1,200 metres, and interesting races as well. And we'll start off with the Snaith team. Act Naturally is one of the runners that they're going to be sending out, and Grant van Niekerk jumps on board. Solid form, good second last time out. What are you expecting, Justin?
Yeah, in all honesty, I probably should have run her in the next race. She's doing well at home. She's a beautiful filly, but this race is just quite strong. I expect a nice run from her. She's way out in the betting, So maybe for for the places, and if you're going wide, she's got the form where some horses don't. Consistent, up-to-date form. So maybe she's got a small chance of upsetting. But obviously, a horse like Veldskoen, there's a lot of talk about, and I think will run a good race. Will probably be the horse to beat because he's unexposed. He's a 4-year-old. Obviously, he's had his issues, but now he's coming in with such a low weight. Poltergeist is a horse that is just very in and out. Yes, he could pop up, but he's completely inconsistent. He's gone from running 17 lengths back to running second. So a very hard horse for punters to follow.
He's aptly named then, isn't he?
No, don't ever name a horse after a horror. I grew up watching Poltergeist.
Richard, you riding Poltergeist. Obviously, last time out, it was a cracking run. If he brings that type of run here, can he have a winning chance?
I just don't think his form is strong enough to say he can win. I just feel that there's 2 or 3 other horses that are a bit more honest than him. I think this horse's name is probably the worst name for a horse, Poltergeist, because he ducks and dives all over the place at home. He sees things which I can't see. So place chance at best. I think everything has got to go exactly his way for him to run a good race. But I saw the win on Veldskoen. I see him a lot at home. He's a smart individual. He's very eye-catching, and those sort of horses, they imprint in your memory when you see them and when they win. I know he's only had 1 winner, but he really looks like a promising horse. And then obviously I rode the horse for Mr. Kannemeyer when Keegan was suspended, USA's Hope. And I was asked, give the horse a chance, let him find his feet and let him, finish the race. But I came out the gates finding myself working the bridle to try and bring him back. And I realized within the furlong, I said, I'm doing the wrong thing. This horse's action is far greater than the whole field. And at that stage, they were like 5 lengths ahead of him. So I dropped the reins, I let him find his action, and through the 400, he was in front already, and I could just dictate and play with the rest. So gave me a good feel. Probably going to need a little bit more ground, but definitely sort of horse that will improve. And then obviously ensuing, since gelding, he's come back, has had 2 starts and has won both. So open sort of race, I think. It's a bit of a minefield, this.
Anthony, you guys send out number 9, Ketch Kikal, and Bernard Fate Herb jumps on board. Duncan Knowles. He's got some solid form. He actually hasn't been beaten far at all in any of his starts.
Yeah, his only win was over 6 furlong, but obviously he's a horse that has shown that he wants to go over further. But I think we never learned much last time. He was meant to drop him in and he went to the front. So I think that's why the reason we've come back to the shorter trip to get him to settle before we go over further. But I think this could be a little bit too sharp for him, and he's got a lot of weight on his back, and he might find it a little bit tough, but I don't think he'll be out of the placing.
So he's a 3-year-old, and he's actually conceding weight to a horse like Veldskoen that Justin mentioned. It's not going to be an easy task.
No, and Veldskoen, I watched his loss. He showed you that he's a horse that's got a bit of potential, and I think he's very well handicapped.
I think for me, he's probably one of the better bets on the card, because I do believe he's a lot better than his rating. Right, let's move on to the 9th and final race of the afternoon for the Whirlpools, and this is the merit-rated 74 handicap, 4 fillies and mares, 1,200 metres the trip, and I thought this was quite a tough race. Anthony, from your perspective, is there anything that stuck out for you in terms of having a nice end to the day?
I think it is a very tough race, and for me, I thought flying first maybe the best in the race, but saying that, I was a punter, I'd play very wide in this race. I thought Copper View's got a chance, Mulberry Street's got a chance. I think the race is very wide open.
Well, let's try to get some help from Justin, who's got a couple of runners. Justin, anything from your side here that you think's a winning type of run?
Look, I think Strawberry Light, the fact that she's favourite shows the depth in this race, that it's not a strong field, because I was quite surprised to see her favourite. She is very well bred. She's not an easy filly. She doesn't like to go forward. We put the blinkers on. She finally won her maiden. But there's definitely more in the tank, because she does as little as she possibly can. And I know there's more to come. If she figures it out and she feels like going forward, I do think she should beat a field like this. But in saying that, she's been possibly one of our most disappointing 3-year-old fillies that we thought would go on with things. I think turn the page, since I've put a tongue tie on her, she's definitely improved. And I know punters like to see things like that where tongue ties show improvement, you put blinkers on, shows improvement. But definitely a race that I think the punters should get involved in because it could easily be a big payout here.
I've got to ask you about Strawberry Light. Her last run, she seemed a much happier horse. She seemed happier in running. Her ears weren't as flat back as they have been in some of her other races. Maybe she's just learning a bit about the game a bit more.
Exactly. 100%. And I think that could maybe help her here in a field that looks extremely open and weak. And just to go back to the last race, funny enough, I wanted to mention, I actually saw, I don't look at other trainers' horses when they work, and if a horse walked past me, I wouldn't even know who it is. But this horse felt good because of his white face. I saw him today, and for me, it was one of the best, better workouts. So not often I watch another trainer's horse, but that horse came past, and I thought that was impressive. Back to this race, as I said, extremely open.
Richard, did you get that feel from her last time out that she was a little bit more enjoying her experience on the race course?
Definitely. But saying that, I also think that she needs a little bit further. The sprints, you're asking her the whole way, and she gets a bit sour, and she wants to get out of it. Saying that, sometimes there's no races for horses. Lovely sort of mirror-rated race. End of the day, tricky card. There's a lot of horses that can easily be a spanner in the works. I have to agree with what Bonji said with his selections. I think there's sort of the area you want to play if you want to have a go in this race.
Fantastic. Right, so not an easy end to proceedings, but what we are going to bring to the end of these proceedings are the top bets from our panelists. So starting with you, Richard, and it's probably the easiest one of the question in terms of who's your best bet on the day?
Captain's Ransom.
No, that wasn't a surprise at all for me, and probably going to be the same answer from you, Justin.
It has to be. Yes, and my value for the day will be Rio Kuari.
Okay, so Rio Kuari, decent odds about him for the sprint race, and he's worth including. Anthony, from yourself?
The Abdicator in race 6. I think he's the best bet on the card. And I'm going to make one horse I forgot about in the last race, Copper View. I watched his last run, and now I'm just looking at it. Going the 6 furlong. Value bet, Copper View.
Copper View in the last as well from Anthony. Hope you enjoyed the show. We hope you've got some knowledge out of it, and we can certainly hope for some massive pulls come Saturday. Thanks for joining us. We certainly wish you all the best with your investments.